Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the new Apple Watch Series 4. I picked up the 44mm Sport Edition the other day at my local Apple store. They had one in stock, so I figured it was probably a good time to upgrade over my 2015 watch. It's funny, with smartwatches, these are not going to become family heirlooms. They're more commoditized pieces of technology, and my 2015 edition here was getting a bit long in the tooth. It was slow, it wasn't responding very well to things. The battery, of course, was wearing out, so that wasn't lasting as long as it used to, and I was eager to see if this new watch offered anything better than that. And we're going to be taking a look at what my experience has been with the 4 here in just a second. I'm also going to give you a bit of a buying guide compared to the Series 3 watch, which is still available and being sold at a lower price tag, yet has most of the features you'll get in the more expensive 4. So we got a couple different things to talk about. And before we get into it, though, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what the Series 4 watch is all about. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. I thought I would also pull up my older watch here so you can see the differences they made to the overall design. This is kind of the first real big redesign of the watch's look and feel since the original came out about 3 years ago. So what they've done on both watches is increase the size of the screen by 2 millimeters. So this is now a 44mm watch for the larger one versus 42 before. And the smaller watch, which was 38mm in the past, is now 40mm. And it doesn't feel all that much larger on the wrist. It's only when you really put them next to each other that you see the new screen looking a little bit larger. And the other thing they did here is they also integrated a thinner bezel display, so you can fit more on the face of the watch than you could before. And that makes it a lot easier to manipulate icons and stuff, especially if you're popping around to apps on your app tray here. They're just easier to push because everything is larger. So you don't gain a lot by this larger screen in the sense of maybe fitting more things on screen in most cases, but everything is larger and much easier to manipulate. So I thought that was a nice overall improvement to the watch design. And again, the first real big improvement I think they've had here for a while. The new watch is slightly thinner than the Series 3 and 2 were, because they have been able to integrate the cellular radio on some of the versions into a smaller case size. But the result here is that the new watch now has about the same thickness as the original did. So they can say that they made the watch thinner than the prior edition, but the reality is it's the same thickness as what it was when it first came out. Now this watch is the Sport Edition. The 44mm here cost me $429. The 40mm is $399. And if you're curious as to what your Sport Edition watch will look like after a couple of years, just look at my old one here. The screen is all scratched up. The aluminum is a bit scuffed up as well. It will certainly show more wear and tear, but you are getting it for a lot less money. They do have one with a stainless steel casing and a sapphire face, but those start at significantly higher prices. So $799 for that sapphire stainless steel version in the 40mm format, $849 for the 44mm. Now there's also a cellular option available for the sport watches, so you can take them out without your phone and be able to make phone calls and get text messages and data back and forth. That's an extra $100 on the sport watches, but it's included in the stainless steel and sapphire versions. You also have to pay an additional monthly fee to your carrier. Usually it's about $10 a month to gain that functionality. I opted not to get the cellular version on mine just because I always have my phone with me, so it wasn't really necessary, but those options are available to you. Now, Apple is still selling the Series 3 watch. That one starts at $279 for the smaller 38mm version. The 42mm version is available for $309. It's about $100 less than the Sport Edition Series 4. Now, beyond the larger screen on the Apple Watch 4, the other big feature of the new watch is the electrical heart rhythm sensor that is on the back of the watch here. Now, this does have the heart rate sensor that all of the other Apple Watches have had as part of their hardware in the past. It's an optical sensor here to measure your pulse rate. But this new watch has the ability to measure now your heart rhythm, which is really important for people who are suffering from a condition called AFib, where your heart beats out of rhythm. And this is one of the leading causes of stroke because what happens is blood can pool up in your heart and clot and then travel through your body to the brain where it causes a stroke. It's treatable, but a lot of people don't know they have it because they don't actually feel their heart beating out of rhythm. Now, I have this condition myself. I'm fortunate that the type of AFib I have is occasional, at least for now, and I can feel it when it happens, but a lot of people just don't know they have this condition and are walking around with a greater risk of stroke as a result. And if they have one of these watches on and take a random heart rhythm reading and it says something's not right, they can go to the doctor and get looked at. And of course, those who know they have AFib can now take an ECG more frequently and seek treatment for something that they need to get treatment on while they're out and about, because this is, of course, a very portable way to get those kinds of measurements. This was cleared by the FDA, but they haven't yet enabled the software to make it work. So I will probably do a follow-up video to show you how this feature works in the next coming month or two when they finally enable it. But the hardware is built into the Apple Watch 4, and once that software update gets pushed down, you'll be able to measure your heart rhythm with the watch. The big thing on this watch is voice commands, and that's one thing the new Apple Watch here, the 4 and also the 3, do a lot better than prior versions. And the new version of the Watch OS allows you to issue voice commands without having to say, hey, you know what first to get that going. So what we're going to do is look at controlling one of my door locks with the watch so you can see how fast things execute now. So what you see on screen here are one of my HomeKit enabled door locks that I reviewed a few months ago. And what we can do with the watch here is just this little flick of the wrist and a command, unlock the studio door. And what it will do now is communicate with my phone in HomeKit and unlock the door. And I found that this works a lot faster than it did on my my original Apple Watch. And I'm also getting verbal cues back from the watch as well. The verbal response from the S word there is something that you can get on the Apple Watch 3 as well. And in using my wife's Apple Watch 3, what you just saw takes about the same amount of time. So it's a lot faster than the older watches, but not all that much faster than the prior editions. I've also found, too, that the overall voice commands do work a lot faster just in general. So I can do this. Tell me the weather in New York City tomorrow.
Here's the weather for New York tomorrow.
And you can just see how much faster and more fluid it is. It's just as fast, really, in my opinion, as my phone. And I really like the ability just to flick my wrist upward to issue the command versus having to shout the, hey, you know what, into my wrist first to get that to execute. So that's been a nice real plus here in moving up to the new watch from the old one. But just know that this raise to speak feature is available on most of the Apple Watches. Only the original one doesn't get it. I also found that sometimes it will accidentally start picking up what I'm saying, especially when I am being very animated in my speaking. So it's detecting that wrist motion, and then it's assuming anything it hears is a command that you're trying to issue to it. So I can see if you're in a meeting having a conversation, there could be a few times when the watch starts talking over you because it didn't know that you were not trying to issue it a specific command. So it's not perfect, but I do prefer it to having to yell out, hey, you know what, every time I want to issue a command to the watch. And here on the 4 and also on the 3, the response to those commands is very, very fast.
New York tomorrow.
And another new feature that has actually helped my marriage out a bit is this new thing called Walkie Talkie. And this is available on Watch OS 5, which again is available for every watch that has been made by Apple over the years except the original one, my old one there. And what you do is you pair it up with a friend or a spouse or whatever. And then what I can do here is just push this down. Hello, how are you doing? I'm just testing the Walkie Talkie feature, sweetie. And it's going to connect to her. Usually the first connection takes a minute or two, but once it makes that initial connection, the back and forth is very, very quick. It's kind of like a store and forward thing. So right now her watch is... There you...
Just hanging out waiting for the bus.
Thank you. I'll talk to you in a little bit. So she's outside waiting for the school bus right now, and no matter where she is, I can have one of these quick two-way communications through the watch. Now, of course, you can snooze this so it doesn't pop up in the middle of something, but I found it to be really helpful, especially when I'm working down here in the basement and she has a quick question for me. It's a lot faster than a text message or having to walk all the way downstairs or screaming down the stairs. We can now do these very quick intercoms back and forth with each other. And this is a great new feature of watchOS 5 that not only works on the 4, but also, again, all the other Apple Watches with the exception of the original one. Now, one thing I didn't do all that much on my other watch was use third-party apps, primarily because the watch was so slow slow, and half the time the apps took so long to load that I really never got around to using them. So that's one thing I've been enjoying quite a bit here on my new watch, is that I can actually use these apps now. This one is called OmniFocus. This is my task manager, so I can very quickly see what I have to do today and check off items on my to-do list, and that will sync up with my phone, which then syncs up with the desktop version of the app as well. I've got another cool app here that's been working better now, which is called Deliveries, which is what I use to track my inbound and outbound shipments. In fact, it will issue me a notification once something arrives at my secure mailbox on the other end of town, so that's nice to see. The Uber app works a lot better. There's also another one I just installed on here called Flight Radar 24. I have this weird thing where I'm fascinated by what planes are flying overhead and where they're going. So what I can do here is just tap on this little app and see what planes are over my head right now and where they're flying to. So just cool stuff here that executes and runs just so much better now on this new watch versus the old one. So while this watch is a dramatic improvement in performance over the original Apple Watch and maybe the Series 1 watch as well, it's not all that much faster than the Series 3. And in playing with my wife's watch, I'm seeing these applications load up very, very quickly on there as well. And maybe there's a second or two difference here or there depending on the app, but generally from a consumer perspective, you're really not going to notice much of a performance difference between the Apple Watch Series 4 and the less expensive Series 3. Now, battery life on the new watch here has been very good. I'm easily getting through a day. Even with using the watch quite a bit to make the video today, I still have about 70% of the battery remaining at about 20 of 4 in the afternoon. I took the watch off the charger at around 6:30 or 7 this morning. Generally, I get to about 11:30 or midnight before I put the watch back on the charger. So far, I've been at about 40 to 50% battery life at the end of the day. And that's good for now. But what happens over time is that these batteries degrade. So my original Apple Watch did very, very well in the first year or so. But then, of course, it started declining in overall battery performance. Now, my original watch, when I got to about 11:30 or midnight, was at 10% or completely dead. So as you use the watch and charge and discharge it over time, and of course it's something you're going to do every day, the battery life will certainly take a hit. And the battery, of course, is not user replaceable either. So just bear that in mind. You will not see this kind of battery life throughout the entire life of the product, but generally you should be able to get through a full day with it. The watch bands are the same as it was on prior versions. So even though this is a 44 millimeter watch versus the 42, all of my 42 watch bands are fitting in here just fine. So it looks like they were able to make the screen larger without having to make you go out and buy all new bands if you already have some. So that was good to see. And just like the Series 3 watch, the new one here is water resistant up to 50 meters. My wife has been taking her Series 3 swimming quite a bit and didn't have any problems in salt water with it. And you'll notice that you could maybe get water trapped in its speakers there. And what they've got is a little way to expunge the water on both of these watches. It plays a little sound here which kind of pushes whatever water is inside the speakers out. And again, she hasn't had any problem with her Series 3 swimming, and I don't expect to see any issues with the Series 4 here either. So overall, I am very pleased with the performance I'm seeing here on the new Apple Watch, especially as compared to my original Apple Watch that I've been using for all of these years. However, I think if I didn't need the heart rhythm sensor, I would have been fine with the Apple Watch Series 3, which of course is a lot less expensive. It does just about everything you just saw here, minus the heart rhythm and with a smaller screen, but generally the experience is the same. The Siri commands can be read back to you like you saw with those examples a little bit earlier. The raise the wrist thing works just fine with it. The overall performance feels about the same to me, even though this one is faster on paper. So generally, I think most folks would be probably just fine with the Series 3 watch. Now, if you want something fancier, you can no longer get the stainless steel and sapphire face on the Series 3, so you'll have to go to the Series 4 for that. But generally, if you're in the market and not really sure what you need, if that heart rhythm thing is not important to you, I think the Series 3 watch will do just fine. But of course, you always have the option to go up to the Series 4 here if you want that larger screen or the additional sensor on the back. So overall, I'm quite happy with it. I was surprised by how much the Apple Watch got integrated into my life and workflow shortly after I reviewed it 3 years ago. And this one just allows me to do things a little bit better than I did before. And I can certainly recommend this one and certainly the Series 3 if you are in the market for an Apple Watch. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters.
including gold level supporters Chris Allegretta, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Too Much Sauce, Gerard Newberg, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.